Man, I'm so excited. Thanks. I'm thankful for an awesome team, man. Pastor Dave, as he allows me to speak. Pastor, man, we have such an amazing team. And I was thinking, like, I saw Z up there when we were worshiping, and he's just like worshiping with us. And Pastor Dave talks about his son all the time. When he's giving his word, you know, he'll bring up. He's like, I know, I always bring up Z, and I always talk about him. I always bring up my son. So I thought it kind of fair to talk about my son. If you don't know my son, he's very precious to me. He's my son with whom I'm well pleased, all right? His name is Eric. I adopted him just a little bit ago. Let's see Eric. I'm tearing up just a little bit. Look at that guy! Now, you might think he's ugly, but he's like the cutest thing I've ever seen. He's got like a little head. He doesn't blink. It's kind of freaky, but he's pretty sweet, right? So here's what happened. After We Are One conference this last year, I always loved snakes. I always just kind of wanted a snake. I just like them. They're cool. They're like slithery. They're kind of weird, but I always wanted one. So after conference, if you were there, if you weren't there, go to weareoneyouth.com, watch those messages. You'll love it. But we brought up this big snake, and I was just like, oh, I got to get one. So I went and I bought one, and he's my son, okay? And I'm so proud of him because he shed his first shed just a couple months ago. I went inside his little cage, and he's got his, like, skin laying there. I was like, ugh, but that's cool, right? And I just, like, I think it was so fun. Like, I get them, but what I didn't realize about snakes is that they're actually, like, kind of scared. They're, like, scared of things. Like, you think that they're scary. You ever heard, like, the expression, like, the spider's more afraid of you than you are of it, right? That's what happens with these snakes. Snakes are generally, like, really scared creatures. Like, they're scared of a lot of things. And his breed is actually called a ball python. It's, like, a very common breed. And the reason it's called a ball python is because when, like, you hold them, they wrap into a ball, and they hide their heads because they don't want to get eaten, obviously. And at first, I was like, bro, why are you hiding from me? Why are you hiding from me? And I realized it's because his eyes, he can't see very well, so he just thinks that something's going to come eat him every time I open the cage, which kind of, like, is really sad. I'm like, I'm not eating you, bro. I'm just wanting to hold you. And then once I hold him, he relaxes. But they're really scared creatures. And naturally, they kind of are. It's because things are trying to eat them. So obviously, it would be kind of scary to be a snake. They can't see very well. They can't hear very well. They're just kind of just a noodle that just lays there. And he likes to find dark corners to, like, hide in because he gets afraid really easily. And I've been thinking about this idea of fear because fear is so intrinsic to him. Like, it was so natural. Like, I did not have to teach my son how to fear, right? I didn't have to teach him that. Why are you laughing? He's my son. What are you talking about? I have to teach him how to fear. No one had to teach you how to fear. No one had to teach you. It's not like, okay, so here you got to be afraid of spiders. No one taught you that. You just saw one, you're like, that's nasty. Get that out of here, right? No one had to teach you how to be afraid of a lot of things. You literally basically grow up being afraid of a lot of things. And fear is such like an intrinsic thing to human life. It's like built in us to be afraid of things. Now, we're thinking about this fear, and I was talking with a couple people and just really like mulling over what is fear. And you know what's interesting is fear isn't just something that's bad. And so tonight my message is called Friend or Foe. Turn to your neighbor and say, friend or foe. See, because my message is about how fear not only is your foe, but fear is also your friend. Now, you might be like, I have no idea what the heck you're saying right now because I don't like being afraid of things. Maybe you're afraid of snakes, or maybe you're afraid of spiders or heights or roller coasters. Maybe you're afraid of being in here right now. Maybe big crowds make you scared. Listen, fear is your friend. Not always. Friend or foe. And so when we look at fear, we think of it usually as this bad thing. But if you really, really look at the basis of fear, you look at the genesis of what it is, it's built as a system in your body to protect you, right? If someone is without fear, they're usually someone who's very foolish, right? They're usually someone who will like do really dumb stuff, jump off roofs. They're usually someone who isn't thinking about what they're doing, and then they'll break their leg and they'll be like, haha, look, right? Those people are foolish people, right? I break my leg and I'm not even trying to. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have lost all sensibility to fear, and then they get older, they'll be like, yeah, I was kind of not smart, right? No, those people are foolish people. And God has actually instilled things into us, instilled fear into us to help us. And fear is a good thing. Now, you're not going to hear most preachers go, I want you guys to fear as much as possible, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not even saying that fear is always your friend. But what I am saying is that we have to understand the ability to embrace fear. It is a good thing. Now, it says in Ecclesiastes 7, and says this, whoever fears God will avoid all extremes, and wisdom makes one wise person more powerful than 10 rulers in a city. See, fear is actually a symptom. It's symptomatic. It's a byproduct of wisdom. Healthy fear. Healthy fear is a byproduct of wisdom. So let's say you're like, I just want to be a wiser person. I'm not smart with certain things. I'm not wise with certain things. You want to be a wiser person, you have to learn how to utilize fear in a better way. That's true. Because a lot of times, fear begins to go astray a little bit, and your wisdom follows along and then goes down into a hole and you've lost it. See, wisdom is the covering, and fear is inside of it. It says that right here in the Word. Now we see that fear, listen, fear is also not very fun at the same time. Fear is not fun at the same time, but man, is it super necessary. It's so necessary because one of the most basic forms of fear is the fact that it protects us. One of the most basic uses of fear is it protects us. Now, I pulled in the church the other day, and I was just, driving in. I think I do that when I drive. I was driving in, and all of a sudden I see this, little animal running around the yard. And I was like, oh, sweet, I'm going to chase it, right? Because it's just what you do, right? So I pull up, I corner it, and this is what happens. Check this out.
Let's catch him in this book.
Oh.
Thomas. Let's put him in a bucket.
Oh, I don't like that.
You don't mess with Mother Nature.
We gotta put him in this and drown him.
We're
We're not drowning him.
You're heartless, dude. Oh, snap!
Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but homeboy peed his pants, all right? That wasn't there already. He was so scared of us, and I wasn't meaning to make him pee. I just want to say hi to him. He was cute. So I go up to him, he pees his pants, so we're laughing at him, right, of course. And what does he do? He's scared, right? He's scared. He has two responses to fear. First response is what? He backs into the corner, right? And then we see the second response to fear. This is the healthy part, ready? We start moving in closer and closer to him, and he realizes, in order to protect my skin, right, I got to get out of here. That's what he realizes. So fear didn't just back into a corner. What did it do? It made him run. Now, I chased after him, but that little guy was fast. He was a lot faster than it looks. And we see that he actually left the premises unscathed. Like, he didn't have a scratch on him. But he didn't get caught. Why? Because fear propelled him to yeet out of there, dog. Fear propelled him to move. Fear didn't say, I'll just stay right here. Fear said, get out of here. I got to save my skin. Now, fear is a natural response to situations that are harmful in your life. It's a natural response to situations that are harmful in your life. But I'm not just talking about situations like, oh, you're going to get a scratch or someone's going to grab you or something like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about spiritual situations, spiritual moments in your life when you realize, oh, snap, if I don't get out of here, something bad's coming down. Something real bad's going to happen. If I don't leave this premises, something very harmful spiritually is going to happen to me. Now, it reminds me of so many situations in my life when I was sitting in a moment, and I remember God downloaded a thought in my head and goes, hey, you should be afraid right now of where you're at. You should honestly be afraid of that. And I had two options. The first option was to ignore it. And the second option was to go, holy smokes, I need to get out of here. Because that fear protects me. Now, I think of this guy in the Bible, And I immediately thought of this because it's like so perfect of a situation. This guy named Joseph in the Bible. Now Joseph, he's my dog. Like, he's awesome. In the Bible, he was a man of God. He loved God. He served God. And he was put into a situation where his master, now he worked for a guy, he was second in command for a guy named Potiphar. Now Potiphar, he was a cool guy, but he kind of basically said, Joseph, you're so cool. I trust you with most of my stuff. You take care of that. And here's what happens to Joseph. Joseph was a well-built and handsome man. You just picture me, okay? And then after these things, his master's wife, so Potiphar, his master's wife, set her eyes on Joseph. She like, ooh, she says, lie with me. I'm not talking about fibbing, okay? She says, lie with me. But he refused and said to his master's wife, behold, my master doesn't know what is with me in the house. He's like, master ain't got cameras all over. He doesn't know what's happening in this house. Listen, and he has put all that he has into my hand. He trusts me. No one is greater in his house than I am. And he has not kept back anything from me, but you, because you're his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? How can I do this? I'm not going to do this. She spoke to Joseph day by day, and he didn't listen to her to lie by her or to be with her. About this time, he went into the house to do his work, and there was none of the men in the house inside. So before, he was doing his normal chores, he was doing his normal stuff, and there's people around, and she's like secretly going like, yo, and he's like, And it was like this covering because there was people around. He's like, yo, listen, there's people, that's nasty, I ain't doing that, right? And then all of a sudden, homeboy walks in the house, and he realizes it's just her, and she comes up to him, she grabs him by his garment, saying, lie with me. Now, that's intense. He left his garment in her hand, and he ran outside. Listen, there are moments in your life when you just need to skirt out of there, and you don't need to stay, right? You just need to get out. Joseph understood because fear gripped him enough, because he realized, not only am I sinning against God, but my master has trusted me with so much. How could I do that to him? It did not say Joseph didn't want to do it. It didn't say it. It did not say that Joseph wasn't like, ooh, I kind of want to. It didn't say that. He said, you know what? I'm out. He said, I'm not staying here because I realize if I stay here one more second, if I think about it, if I just go, maybe, I might bypass the natural fear response that God has instilled within me, and I might start to go, yeah, well, is it that bad? No, listen, there are some moments in your life when you don't even need to think about it because God's already talked about it. He's already talked about it 100 times, and he's saying, listen, the reason I've talked about it 100 times is because that's something that is awful. That's something you need to be afraid of. And Joseph was afraid enough that he goes, I'm getting out of here. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, man, I'm just playing around. Here's the thing. You think you're playing around. You're not just playing around with what you have right now. You're playing around with your future eternity. That's what you're playing around with. I'm just having fun. I don't want to have fun at the expense of my future. I don't. Fun is fun, right? But if fun, it only lasts for so much until it's destroyed me, and I'm never going to have fun again. And so I want to be able to see things as clear as I can and walk in a good fear. Now, I'm the type of person, I like to mix words together, like fork and spoon equals spork. I love that. I think that's awesome. So I was trying to think of a way to symbolize a good fear, because every time you say fear, it has this bad denotation or connotation. You're just like, you just don't think about it in a good way. So I'd combine good plus fear equals gear. So hey man, you need to have some gear right now, which is kind of a weird saying, but it made me think about this idea of a gear, right? What is a gear? Like a metal gear. It's something that you put into a machine to do what? Propel it forward. It's something you put into a machine. God has instilled this gear in you, good fear, LOL, to push you forward. That's why he did it. He instilled this little mechanism, right? It's just a little big guy, okay? It's not big. But this little thing is meant to propel you forward. That's what a gear does. A gear moves you forward. And I thought it was funny because when we look at a healthy fear and we look at a gear, right, in our lives, a lot of times we don't look at fear as just this little mechanism that propels us forward. We look at fear as this huge wall in front of us that stops us from moving anywhere. That's how we see fear. I'm here to change our perspective. I'm not here to say that fear can't get wrong. We're going to touch on that in a sec. But maybe there's a reason why it's going wrong and not just the whole thing is bad by itself. I mean, the beginning of wisdom, it says in the word, is fear of God. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. If you want to walk as a wise person in your life, begin with this little gear that moves you forward, this good fear. We have to begin with that. And you might be asking, why? Why should I have a healthy fear? Why is it so important? Here's why it's important. Okay, you ready? You ready for this? This is good. Okay, ready? Here we go. For you created my inmost being, God. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. God, your works are wonderful. He's talking about you right now. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Why does God want you to have fear? Because you're something worth protecting. That's why. Why does God want you to fear being in a harmful situation? Because he doesn't want you to have harm. He wants to protect you. He is the protector. Now, he wants to strengthen you to face things, but that first goes by running into his arms. That first goes by realizing that you're worth something protecting. Joseph realized not only is my reputation with God, but my reputation with Potiphar is so important to me. I am not gonna lie with you. He said, I'm gonna run out of here because I need that fear to protect me because you're worth protecting. Turn to your neighbor and say, you're worth protecting. And the lie of the enemy is that you don't have anything to protect, that you are not worth it. And some of you, that's your first thought. The second I said that, you're like, oh, he's just preaching one of those like lovey-dovey messages that say like, oh, I'm so nice. Now, listen, I'm not making this up. You are worth protecting. But here's the thing, not just you are worth protecting, because you are so much bigger than even your body, even your mind. Everything that you touch, your family, your friends, they're affected by the things you do, by the things you think, by the things you talk, by the things you utter from your mouth. They're affected by that, which means if fear has gripped you, it is gripping people because of you, and you want to protect them. See, not just you right now is worth protecting, not just you right now, but your life is worth protecting. Your influence. You might not think that your influence is important, but your influence is one of the most important things in your entire life. Your influence is worth protecting. Your reputation is worth protecting. I want to be the guy, had this in my leadership development class. They say, I want to be the person, when I die, tons of people come to my funeral because I affected their life. Do you want that for your reputation? I want that. I want to protect that. I want to be able to protect that. And here's what I also want to protect. I want to protect my future. Because my future is all I have. Keep going forward. That's all I got. I don't got the past anymore. All I have is this thing in front of me. I want to protect that. And I don't want to be the person when I'm 50, 80 years old looking back just soaked in regrets. Because regret is the son of someone who hasn't had a healthy fear. Who hasn't had a healthy fear of the future. Who hasn't had a healthy fear. If you say, man, I don't fear this relationship just a little bit of what it could be, maybe just take a look. I'm not saying you have to like be sweating over it. But if it's something worthwhile in your life, you should at least double check and go, man, am I looking into actually what this could become? Am I looking into actually what I'm looking at on the internet could become? Or am I just thinking about the right now? Because listen, fear, healthy gear, good fear, doesn't just worry about what's going to happen right now. It worries about my whole eternity. It's got my whole eternity. When God looks at you, he doesn't just look at you right now. See, God isn't stuck in time like we are. when he looks at you, he looks at everything you're gonna be. And he wants to protect that future right now. Now, I don't know if y'all heard this. Oh man, dude. I love these memes that have just been like coming straight out the meme oven, right? They've been so funny. I am going to storm Area 51. Who's with me? All right, I'm actually not going to, but you know what I found is funny? I found the Facebook group, and some of y'all say you're going. That's true. It's literally like, this so-and-so is interested in going to, yeah, you're going to go to Arizona, storm Area 51, right? That ain't happening, right? And I just think it's so funny. Like, it's like priceless. If you don't know what this is, if you've been living under a rock, basically some rando started a Facebook event in September to basically storm Area 51. They say, we're going to storm Area 51. They can't stop us all. And it kind of blew up. It kind of became a thing. Yeah. Right now, there's almost 1 million people saying they're going to do it, right? I know some of them are just spam over. I know some of you aren't going for sure. I know that for sure, because I know y'all parents, right? I know they ain't letting you go to Area 51, about to get shot up in the place. But they say they're going to go storm Area 51 because we want to see the aliens, right? We want to see what you got. We want to see them. And I think it's funny because it's so absurd, and yet people are taking it seriously. They're taking it seriously. Like the literal United States Air Force put out a disclaimer basically saying, we finna shoot you if you try and do this, right? They will. So there are people who are taking it seriously, honestly, on both sides. That's what's kind of funny / kind of really scary, right? Because you have these conspiracy theorist people who get so focused on what they don't know. Man, the government, man, they're hiding all this stuff, right? I think conspiracy theorists make this face. And they're like, man, they're hiding this stuff. I gotta find out. Why are they so focused on these things? I think it's interesting. We fear a lot of what we don't understand and what we don't know. And some people who are gonna storm Area 51, hopefully not, who are talking about storming Area 51, they're people who are just afraid of what they don't know. They're really afraid of it because it's scary. If you're walking in the woods and you think things are around you, but you don't know what it is, that's way scarier than just seeing one guy out in the woods, because you'd be like, I can run away from that. I can't run away from, the Demogorgon or something like that, right? You can't do it. Now, we have all these fears, that even like conspiracy theorists, why are they so drenched in fear? And I find it interesting is it usually starts off with someone like saying like, oh, but what about this? And they're like, that's interesting. Well, what about this? It gets to a point when they're just interested and they're just curious and they own the fear. And then at a certain point, the fear becomes so immense that the fear begins to own them. That everything they do, they see with that lens of that fear. They walk around and they go, oh, but what about this? Everything is that. Everything is now, there's this problem and this problem. Did you think about this? Now, everything they do is drenched in that fear. And no longer do they own the fear. Do they control the little gear inside of them that God made? Now, they turned around and their little fear has become this giant monster that has swallowed them up. And they can't control it. It now owns them. I love that song, and that's why we sing it. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Why are you no longer a slave to fear? Because some of you have let fear become your master. That's never how God intended it. God never intended for fear to go away. He intended for you and him to be its master. That's what he intended. And you've set fear down, and you walked away, and you turned around, and that fear has become so big in your life that it's now controlling you. Everything you see, everything you do, you become so drenched in fear because it controls you. And it's now moving you like you're a puppet. You're its slave. And the devil, as his eyes, has his sight set right on you because you're something worth bringing down. Why does the devil want so badly for you to be a slave to fear? Here's why. You ready for this? Because he is too. Right? What is fear? Fear is the absence. I'm going to tell you, actually, I'm going to read it right here. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. 3 things the devil ain't got. Power, love, self-control. So that means he is a slave to fear. He does not have control. Fear has control of him. Here's why. Because if you don't know, at the end of the good book, we're going to kick his butt. Like, Jesus coming back, just, riding down, chopping heads, it's going to be awesome. The devil ain't got nothing, and he realizes that. So he's a slave to fear. And all his goal is to make you a slave too. Because if he's going down, so are you. That's his whole goal. But we think this devil, I've heard it before. Man, the devil, he's just like a rebel, man. He's living his own freedom. He's like fighting again. Like, I've literally heard atheists say that. They'd be like, oh, I envy the devil. Let me tell you something. The devil is a slave to fear. Because when you have fear in your life that enslaves you, now no longer is anything your ally. Everything is your foe. Everything. If you think about it, you look at that groundhog. What was it? He was afraid of everything. No longer could he recognize who was his friend and who were his foe. Because you don't have control of fear, it controls you, and everything you see is through that lens. Everything you see is through the lens of fear. So why does it control us so much? I have 3 major points for this one little section. Because I want us to understand very systematically, why does it do the way it does? Why does it control us? When I turn around, why did it go from a little gear, a good fear, to this big monster now that has me in its clutches? Why does it do this, God? The first reason is simply because we don't know how to use it correctly. We don't know how to harness it. We don't know how to put it into practice in a godly way. And the way I think about it is we like to put on big encounters here. Like, we love to do it. And P. Dave and the rest of the team, really understands. We do like putting on encounters, but I don't know if you know this, and the interns can say a mighty amen, because these encounters, they take some work, right? Yeah, there's some work. And sometimes I get in this moment when I kind of forget about the work for a while, and then I'll just wake up in the morning and be like, oh, no, and I'll be texting people like crazy, right? And I forgot about it for the last couple weeks, and then all of a sudden I wake up and I realize, oh, snap, we got to get this stuff done. And I wake up and I'm already sweating. I'm a sweaty person already, and so you don't want to see me sweating in the morning. And I wake up and I'm already freaking out. I'm sweating. I'm texting people. I'm like, hey, can we get this? Can we get this? Hey, where's this at? Hey, I feel like Pastor Dave, you know what I'm saying? And we're constantly moving. We're going so fast because why? We're having to pick up the pace because we've maybe been so lax for such a long time. And we don't know how to use it because God, he gives us the opportunity to take healthy doses of this gear, this good fear, in moments to help us check. See, if I would have just maybe stopped for a moment and just checked, okay, what do I got to do to put on this encounter? And this is a really crude example, but you can spiritualize this in a mighty way, because if you just take 1 second, you look at yourself, you just say, okay, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing when I just did that one thing with this person? Or am I with the right friends? And I take a healthy dose of fear and I go, whoa, I'm not. I can then change my pathway so easily. But then right when I'm at that decision, I can now know what I'm supposed to do because I've taken those healthy doses of fear. Instead of the type of people who will just all of a sudden just be drenched in all this fear until it overtakes you. And what do you think I do? I walk into the office, I'm like, we gotta get stuff done, right? And so I trample people, not literally because that'd be really mean, but I go, hey, we gotta get this done, I'm in a bad mood. I'm not nice that day. Someone might be coming and be like, hey, you gotta really help me. I'm like, shut up, I gotta get this done, right? We get so focused now that we might lose out on some things that our God is showing us and sending our way. But why? Because we've been just doused in this giant bucket of fear, right? We've just been ice bucket challenged, this giant thing of fear. And it's now overtaken us. That's all we can think about. we don't understand how to use it. See, godly fear is meant to propel me towards God. Listen, not away from everything. Godly fear is meant to propel me towards God, not away from everything. And we get in this moment when we just go, I don't want anyone to talk to me. I got to get this done. Or maybe it's not like a task situation. Maybe it's just realizing, oh, my life is so messed up. I just want to give up. And you're just big gulping fear in these giant things. And God's saying, no, that's not what I meant. I want you to take a healthy balance, this little gear, just to move you forward. Not enough to stop you in your tracks. That's not what God intended it for. He intended it to move me into a place where I'm supposed to be, not stop me. It says here in Proverbs 1:3, the soul of a sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of a diligent is richly supplied. I read this and I thought, man, God, I want to use what you give me so well. I want to steward it so well that I am richly supplied. Like my soul is like richly supplied. It's like a warehouse, and it's filled up with all this spiritual wisdom, with all the spiritual knowledge, with all the spiritual insight, that you just fill me up. I'm richly supplied. I imagine this big warehouse that is my soul, and God's just filling it up, because in moments I'm taking those healthy doses and going, where am I supposed to be right now? Right here. Instead of just walking blindly and then realizing I'm not in the right spot. And if I could just take that dose and realize, okay, I need to be right here. I'm going to be richly supplied. Guess what? Now, as I'm walking along this pathway, there's going to be someone whose warehouse is empty. And I can go, you know what? God supplied me. I would love to supply you. Because I have been faithful. Not always, but I want to try my best to be faithful so bad. I want my warehouse just stacked full. I want it to be so richly supplied that when someone's walking around just empty with nothing, I can go, listen, here. And they can feel that, and they can understand, okay, I know now where I'm supposed to be. I know now where I'm supposed to go. I want to be able to be that person. Do you? I want to be able to be that person who is so richly supplied. So that was point number 1. Point number 2 is we aren't alert. Why does it control us? Because we aren't alert. Now, it reminds me of this story in the Bible again. I talked about Joseph, my man. Now this guy's name is Gideon, the second guy I want to talk about. Gideon is cool. He's really sweet. He's cool because God called him to be a leader of an army that he didn't necessarily want, and yet he was faithful in. He was a little doubtful at first. He's like, God, are you sure I'm supposed to do this? But he eventually did it, and he's in this position. I'm kind of leaving a lot out, but I just really want to target this one point because I think it's really poignant. He's now in a position where God's telling him, I want you to pick your soldiers who you're going to go into battle with. I want you to pick them. And God has very specific things he wants him to pick. God said this to Gideon. Anyone who laps with his tongue, the way a dog laps, set to one side. Now, they're at a river, and God's like, this is how you're going to pick these soldiers. Anyone who laps with his tongue like a dog, set to one side. Everyone who kneels and drinks, drinking with his face on the water, set them to the other side. 300 lapped with their tongues from cupped hands. All the rest knelt to drink. God said to Gideon, I'll use the 300 men who lapped at the stream to save you and give Midian into your hands. All the rest can go home. Now, you're like, what in the world is this talking about? See, God, he was setting this up, and many people for a long time have gone, why was this the specific thing that God wanted Gideon to do? And if we look at the position that the soldiers were in, they were in 2 positions. The first position was kneeling straight down, just head straight in the water, right? Not seeing nothing. The second position was scooping up the water, taking a sip, keeping their eyes and their bodies alert. You know, they're soldiers, right? It's not very smart for a soldier to put his head straight down in the water. But you know something interesting? Which one gains the most water? The one who has his face down in the water. They gain maybe the most water in the moment, but they might not be alert enough to win the battle. And a lot of us, we're just like, I just want to live my youth. I just want to be a kid. Why is my parents dragging me down? What are all these rules for, right? And you just want to just take these big gulps of water. You just want to be like, I'm going to stick my face right in. And you're not alert to the things that are trying to get you and steal your future and steal your friends and steal your possibilities for the rest of your life, your calling, everything else, because you have your face just drenched in the water, sucking as much as you can in. And you finally get your head up and you realize the enemy is surrounding you because you weren't alert. Because you were so focused on what you had in front of you. See, a little bit of that healthy fear, that gear, propels me to go, you know what? I might not be able to take as much water in at this time, but I know in the long haul, I'm going to be safe. My soldiers are going to be safe. My friends are going to be safe. I want to steward what God gives me. I don't want to take it for granted. I don't want to just throw it by the wayside. I want to be able to be like, God, I want to protect what you have for me. I want to fear the enemy enough to know that's who I'm supposed to fight. And it reminds me of Eric again, because he's my son. And Eric he's a hungry boy. Listen, let me tell you something. And if you don't know what snakes eat, they like to eat little mousies, right? And some of y'all are like, oh, the cute little mouse. It hurts my heart too, but it's for my son, I'm kind of a selfless father. So Eric loves to eat, and I noticed something about when he eats. So disclaimer, if you don't like seeing snakes eat, you can watch this right now. Dude, he's a boss. I about showed like 100 people that. I was like, look at this. That's super awesome, right? And you might be like, oh, the poor little thing. But you know what I noticed when I first watched this? And I first fed him, and then I fed him again, and I kept feeding him. You know what I noticed something? Is every time I put that mouse in his little feeding area, what did I notice? The mouse had no clue. And everyone I've showed, they're going, why isn't that mouse scared? And you know what I realized? Is these are mouse that are bred to be feeder mouse. They're bred and raised to be fed to snakes and other various animals, not humans. That'd be weird. And they're bred that way. So what that means that they've been sitting in a cage their whole life. They've never seen a snake. So how do they know to be afraid of it? How did he know I'm supposed to be afraid of this thing that's about to pounce right on me? And here's the issue. Here's the biggest issue as to why fear grips you, because you don't know who the enemy is. You are fighting things that aren't the enemy. You are fighting so many things that you believe to be the enemy that aren't. And you might ask yourself, wait, I don't understand, because you just said earlier to run away from as fear makes me run away. This doesn't make any sense. How often am I supposed to run away, and how often am I supposed to fight? Let me make it simple for you. You fight every time. Because when you look at what Joseph was doing, when he ran away, he was fighting. Now, he wasn't maybe fighting against Potiphar's wife. Let me tell you exactly what he was fighting against. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces in evil and heavenly realms. That's what we're fighting against. And some of you have got your eyes set on your enemies at school, on your enemies at work, that you have your heart set against fighting, against your own self. You're struggling because you're fighting yourself. You're fighting God, and that's not your enemy. That's not your enemy. You're so focused on, well, this person did this to me, and you see the way they looked at me, you see the way they talked to me, and you're so focused on, oh, these bad kids at work or these bad kids at school, man, they're terrible. I can't stand being around them. Everyone gets stuck in this misconception as to who the enemy is. The enemy is not the people. The enemy is Satan, who has his clutches on their mind and is constantly dousing them in fear. So when you can walk into a new place and you can realize it's not that they hate me, they're afraid. Because fear, godly fear, is meant to propel me towards God. Worldly fear is meant to push me away from everything. And you're everything. You could be the everything. Listen, collision is a moment, is an encounter you could have with God. Now, I'm not saying you can't have that encounter here, but there's something different when you set yourself up for a moment, for a week where you can refocus. And maybe you can rid yourself from some fears that have gotten a hold of you at school. Maybe you can rid yourself of some fears as you sit in your house and just watch TV or play Fortnite. Maybe you can just pull some fears out and you can refocus for a sec. That's why I believe collision is so important. That's why you need to be there. You need to be there. It's not just because we're gonna have fun, we're gonna jump around, it's gonna be summer camp. It's not just because of that. It's because there are legitimate encounters with God that are made to refocus you into heavenly realms, made to refocus you on who the enemy is. Because maybe some of you have been thinking, I'm the enemy. I hate myself. And you've been battling yourself. Maybe some of you is like, it's my dad. He is not the enemy. As much as you might think he is. He's not. He's afraid. He's a slave to fear, maybe. Maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's your uncle, maybe it's whoever. Maybe it's you. You've been a slave to fear. And it's got a hold of you. See, if you look at worldly fear, it actually pushes you away from everything. So when there's a moment of injustice, or when there's a moment when God says, or when someone says, I need help, you're so enslaved in fear that you actually can't help anyone. And you become a coward. And what godly fear is, like what Joseph had and what Gideon had, was in a moment when he goes, God, you're right there. And I know that there's some scary things in my pathway to get to you, but I know that you're my only hope. So I'm gonna push through. I'm gonna fight. And if that means running away from this moment, I'm gonna run away, because I have some spiritual forces that are trying to take me and my friends down. Because if you notice, Joseph wouldn't have been the only one who would have gotten taken down from lying with Potiphar's wife. So would have Potiphar's wife. So Joseph didn't only protect himself and his legacy and his future, he protected hers. And there are people who are like sleeping around. There are people who are watching things they shouldn't watch. There are people who are slandering people to the point where they feel like they have no future. And your fear isn't just affecting you. It's rubbing off on everyone you touch, on everyone you talk to. And that fear monster, whether it's a friend, whether you think it's a friend or it's actually a foe, it doesn't like just snacking on you. It wants everything. It wants to take everything from you. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms. So what do we do? Luckily, the Word tells us exactly what to do. In Ephesians, if you look at this book, Paul wrote it at the beginning of Ephesians. Paul is talking about the church. He's talking to the church, and he's talking about all the blessings that God has given him. And he's just like, it's all like blessings. It's like all the blessings are raining down, like it's amazing or whatever. And then at the end of Ephesians, now it starts to get a little bit like less fun. He's talking about spiritual forces in heavenly realms coming against us. And then he brings it to this point that almost seems like, and he ends the whole book on this. He says, suit up in the armor of God, because someone's coming for you, and you better be prepared for when it comes. See, the measure of a person isn't what they do when things are going great, but how they prepare when things will go wrong. That's what the measure of a person is. I want to be the person who can propel myself still in the midst of the worst situations, because I know God He has my back. He has me. And He's equipped me with abilities to suit up within Him, within His Word. And He says it right here. And a lot of times we read about the armor of God, we're like, that's so cheesy. That's like kids' church stuff. Let me tell you, it ain't just kids' church stuff. This is boss stuff, right? This is awesome. Paul wrote this stuff for the Ephesians, the church of the Ephesians, not the kids' church of the Ephesians, right? He didn't write that. So I'm going to read this. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so when the day of evil comes, not if it comes, when it comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in its place, with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. And in addition to this, take up the shield of faith, which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. You notice most of them are meant to protect, and one's meant to fight against. Let's protect, but let's realize we're here to fight. We're here to fight. And that fear, that godly fear, it doesn't propel me away. It actually propels me to fight, because I realize if I don't fight, I have more to lose than if I do. I have everything to lose. So I want to offer one part of this up right now. If you can bow your heads and close your eyes. Some of you have never readied yourself with the helmet of salvation. You're getting bashed on the head by the devil constantly. The thoughts that are coming into your head have constantly been making you fear everything except God. And what He wants to do in this moment is He wants to offer you an opportunity to ready yourself with that helmet of salvation. So I'm gonna pray this prayer. And if you say, this is me, I really quick just want you to slip your hand up and then put it back down. If you say, I need Jesus' salvation on my life, what He did on the cross to fight against that fear that is entangling me up. If you say, I need that salvation, maybe it's the first time, maybe it's a renewal, I want you to raise your hand real quick. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You say, I need that fear to get out of here. Thank you. I need to ready myself with that helmet of salvation. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Any more? Any more hands? Yep, I see you. I want us to pray this prayer. This is a simple prayer. But as we put this helmet on, we can very easily take it off. And I don't want us to take this helmet off, because this helmet is the thing that protects our minds, the thing that controls the rest of our body. I want us to understand the importance and the gravity of what this is. And after we pray this prayer, we're going to go into a moment of worship, and we're going to equip ourselves with the other elements of the armor of God. But it starts here. So if you say, I need salvation, I want everyone to pray this prayer with me. Say, Jesus, I'm not a slave to fear. I'm a child of God. I follow you, and I need your salvation. What you did on the cross for me, I couldn't do on my own. I need your help. I need you to protect me. I need you to give me strength and security and courage. I love you, Jesus. In your name, amen.
Hey, thanks for checking us out. You can see any latest sermons here, or you can go to weareoneyouth.com, scroll to the very bottom, and there's a connect bar. And on that connect bar, I want you to just let us know how this sermon has impacted you. If you've made a personal decision for Jesus Christ, we want to know about it. We'd love to know your testimony. We'd love to know who you are and to really connect and be a part of the family with you. So if you can do that, we would love for that to happen. Or if you have any questions about upcoming events or more about who we are, browse our website. You can check that out there as well. If you liked what you heard today and you'd like to come on out as a part of our gathering on Wednesday nights, we encourage you to do that. We'd love to shake your hand. We'd love to hug you and welcome you to the family. Or you can check us out on social media and be a part of what's going on every day here at We Are One. God bless.